so we're going to bring my brother into the dialogue. Dasan, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well. You just watched yourself on a screen, so what's going on in your mind?
Man, it's always crazy, man, to see that. And I'm one of those who I live a very public life, but I'm a very shy individual. So it's always crazy to see it. It's beautiful, though. It's a beautiful piece.
So you're a native North Carolinian. I'm a native North Carolinian. So to all my native North Carolinians, stand up. You said in the video, in the South, we just move different, talking about how we care about each other. Talk more about that in terms of the elders who helped show you the way, because you talk about that too. Like, in what ways did they show you the way?
I was very fortunate to have elders who recognize that it was necessary for them to be present for us. What they were trying to do was to make sure that we had sounding boards, we had guidance, that they were there to equip us for figuring out how to continue to struggle on. And that's a wonderful thing. It's apprenticeship. It's apprenticeship. Like, it's better, we can go out here and bang our heads against the wall and learn it the hard way, or we can sit at the feet of some folks who've done this fight before, and we can gain some strategies, we can gain some understanding, we can gain some insight. And that process helps to kind of empower us in a way that lasts us for the rest of our life. And I'm a testimony to that. Like, I was taught how to organize and move around an issue, but I use those same skills in everything that I do, both in terms of how to read a situation, how to assess, how to maneuver through it, who my allies are, what my challenges and who my targets are, and what I need to do to move through it. And I just, I come from a beautiful family, but that's a little different when that intentional mentorship happens. And for that to come from the elders also was important, because sometimes as young folks, you sometimes feel like the elders don't care, or you feel judged by being young. And they were like, I was a knucklehead just like everybody else, but me being a knucklehead did not get in the way of them seeing the value of what it would mean for me to have these lessons and be able to move with them.
Yeah, and I see you pay that a lot forward in the work that you do. All the things that you do, Kaisha mentioned, it's like hyphen, 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 hyphen. So with Black Poetry Theater, Bull City Slam Team, things like that, how do you do that in your mentorship, pay that forward, and what are some things that you like impart on these young people? Because I know a lot of young men and women studied under you and just learned so much and have so much high praise. Like, how do you do that?
First is just holding the space for them to feel seen and heard. Also valuing process. I don't expect to give them an answer, because if I give them an answer, what I'm doing is I'm not building a cadre, I'm building a following of folks who are following me, and I don't want to be followed. Number one, that doesn't go too well for anybody that happens to. We know the trappings of charismatic leadership. You can get caught up in your own ego very quickly. What I'm trying to do is build a cadre, which means that I was taught to build folks you can stand in solidarity with, stand beside. So even if you're younger, even if you're less experienced, when it's time to move, we moving together. And so let you be seen and heard, create a space where we can talk, and then to create a space where we can learn together and come to value and understand process. And that way it's a reciprocal relationship. Like, I show you everything I know, and then you show me your insights so that I can understand that there's always another way to think about things. And we both grow and move through this together. And I'll fade out into the sunset and you'll keep moving, but you'll also have a way to hold that same space for whoever's coming after you. And you don't get that with an answer. All you do is end up regurgitating the same rhetoric, as opposed to being able to equip someone to discover and understand and grow and process for themselves.
We see that a lot today, I think, people looking for answers and then people giving them answers, as opposed to, no, this is how you work through it. Because when I'm not here anymore, you got to know how to work through it. Grandparents teach you how to fish. You know what I'm saying? They don't just fish for you. So I think that's an interesting thing that you say. You're featured on my brother Nate the Flow Keys 2019 EP on a track called The Voyage. And one of the lines is this: if liberation is a light, then oppression is fading dim. I say liberation is a matter of teaching us how to swim. Unpack that a little bit more for everybody.
So it goes hand in hand with what you were just saying. The first part of that is just to recognize that what we're fighting against is not overwhelming, and it's not, it's not something we can't overcome. We will win. And if we remember that darkness is going to fade. But the latter part of that is about being equipped. And if you teach us how to swim, we can navigate any troubled waters. Like we can survive. If we start off on a boat, if the boat is toppled, we know how to swim. We're not going to drown, and we'll make it. And we're strong enough to make it to land, and then we'll go back at it again. Like when you do that for us, what you're doing, anybody who does that is making sure that we're going to make it through. And if we survive, then we're going to overcome. And when we overcome, we're going to celebrate and win. And that's where our liberation is at. We just got to make sure that we're equipped enough to be able to get to the other side.
So let's talk about liberation for a moment. What does true liberation, if we can quantify it in some way, what does that look like?
It starts with self-determination. It's also just like Juice was talking about. Like we want the room and the freedom to live our lives, and we want whatever it takes for us to be able to live the quality of life that we should have. And that's where it starts, self-determination. That means I get to determine the direction and the process of my own life. And starting from there is where I think liberation is. And after that, it's also being able to walk in all of the beauty, brilliance, joy, humanity that we have, without fear of retribution, without fear of retaliation, and to be able to hold and build the kind of communities and sustainabilities that help to continue to support our people. That's the kind of liberation I'm looking for.
It's interesting, some of us want liberation now, immediately, in all forms, and some people are okay working towards some more loftier things over time. And it takes me back to the early 1900s. So in Durham, there's a state superior court case, Hocutt versus Wilson. You're probably familiar with this, 1933, and it was about the integration of UNC's pharmacy school. So Thomas Hocutt went to North Carolina College for Negroes, now North Carolina Central University. And so they were like, look, we don't have professional schools, and I want to go to essentially a grad school. And so they went to the state superior court. State superior court said no, but what the NAACP was doing was saying, look, this is going to lay the groundwork for the next 20 years of cases when it comes to integrating these universities. And it's just fascinating to think about how there was people in Durham at the time that were like, wait a minute, let's not go that far. Then you had these young lawyers who were like, nah, we're gonna go that far. And Margaret Eads writes about this in her book called We Face the Dawn. She says that case was a warning sign that a new breed of black lawyer intended to target the exclusion of blacks from public professional schools in the South. So it's interesting because that's 1933, then you get Brown in 1954, and then we know what happens and how we really don't get the desired effect. But liberation now versus liberation over a period of time, kind of what's your take on that? And because I go back and forth. I really struggle with what we deserve now versus how these systems work and how some things are going to take more time.
Well, I think it's actually a matter of levels to liberation. I think just saying, well, you have short-term and long-term goals, but they're both goals. I think it's the same thing with liberation. The important part is that you can't get anywhere that you don't have any understanding of what it is when you get there. And so each step is part of a larger vision of where you want to get, and it orders your steps. So there's liberation every day, and then there's liberation when we win. And so it's carving out these little victories and these little moments that when you get there and we win, you know how to exist in it because you've been practicing and you've been carving out these spaces and building. So, and when we get there, if every one of us does it, it's like radical transformation is both redemptive and revolutionary. Redemptive is the individual, revolutionary is the group. If we each do that, and when we win, then collectively, we have an understanding of how to live and flourish in that liberation because we have been carving at it and building and cutting and modeling these moments all the way. So it goes hand in hand.
Everybody take a moment and breathe because he just broke that down seamlessly. I want to unpack a statement that you made in the video. You said, people can argue ideology and theory, but it's hard to argue when when they see that something affects someone's life. You're running from a person, not an idea. Give us a specific example about what you mean.
That's one of those things that I love about being Southern. Anyone who's in the South knows that there's certain life lessons that stick with us because of the way that it was told to us. And those stories root, because not only are you getting an understanding of the lesson, but you're also getting a vision of how it plays out. And you can look at your life accordingly and your proximity to the way that that story is being told and figure it out. But it also, what it does is if you're ever in that situation later in life, you know it immediately because you know what it looks like. You don't just know how it can be categorized. You got told a story about how it played out. So when you start to see pieces moving, it's like, oh, I've seen this movie before. And you know exactly how to respond. And that's what I believe. We have been socialized as a society to argue ideology. And we argue theory, and everybody wants to be a talk show host. And it's all over our heads. But in order to break that monotony and disrupt that, you have to bring that down to a lived reality. And when you do that, to continue to argue above that, you're now a jerk. Who wants to be the jerk in the room? Or you expose yourself, and who really doesn't care about this conversation at all? That's one of the two things that's going to happen. You're either going to be the devil's advocate for no reason, or you're going to expose your true beliefs. And now we know who you are, and we see you for who you are, and we'll call you what you are.
Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s. Everybody often always talks about that. Of course, we see the arts in the 60s, and then you go back before that. Even in the late 1890s and early 1900s, you see art being a way to as a catalyst for change, as we say. And in your TEDx Durham talk a few years ago, you said this: all major social movements in this country have been chronicled in art and culture. When artists are an integrated part of the strategy, what they can provide is ongoing inspiration, agitation, and they can be messengers. So my question for you, 2020 has been a heck of a year for a lot of different reasons, but what we saw in May, June, and July were all these organizations and systems, if you will, saying we stand in solidarity and we're going to do X, Y, Z. I don't know about that, because as that Pew Research that I cited earlier says, some of that support wanes. My question, though, is what are you seeing as far as organizations on a macro level? Are we seeing people really wanting to use artists to, as you say, provide ongoing inspiration, agitation, and be messengers, or are you seeing more performative acts?
It's really more performative. And it's more performative because that's what everyone feels is expected. When a moment happens and it's significant enough, then everybody runs looking for an artist because they know that they can speak in a way that's going to grab attention. When the moment's over, then you no longer need the artist. All you need is somebody in marketing who feels they're creative. Our value is dependent on the circumstance. We know that. And when I talk about every moment in our history being chronicled in art and culture, we know it because it's affecting us. Like, it's our community. We look out our window and see it, and that's what we write about. For us to get that call by the organization doesn't often happen. What happens is we see it, we write about it. They see it and they start to move. When they realize that how they're moving isn't working, they call us to help co-sign them in the community so that the community turns out for them. Or if they have a win, they want us to come and celebrate it so they feel like they're celebrating with the community. But when they sit down to plan the strategy, they don't include us. But what you're missing out on, and it's funny because Lauryn Hill recently said this, I saw a video, she was at a Jaylen Brown event, Isaiah Thomas was hosting it. She said that when you have these disparate communities, there are folks who are able to maneuver through them, and artists and musicians have always been some of those folks. And that's very true. We can walk in different spaces and be welcomed because of our gifts and talents. So why would you overlook one of the best resources that you have for understanding what's going on the ground? But it happens consistently. And so what you're going to see is you see that percentage lower, and the calls have lowered. And then after we get to inauguration and there's an energy and we hit Black History Month, everybody's going to get a new bag. By the time we get to April, it'll wane again. And so, but it happens. It happens until that mindset changes. It continues to happen. And so I'm about telling artists that so that we can start to continually say, let's stop making this transactional. Like, let's start to really build partnerships and collaboration. We have a skill set that's valuable beyond what we create, and you need it. and I want them to know they need it.
Yeah, I want to take a moment here just to second everything he just said and tell all the creatives out there, understand your value and your worth, not just in these times like this, but going forward to everything Dasan just said. It's got me kind of emotional because I try to preach that stuff. In one of your books, you got a new book coming out that I want you to talk about in a minute, but in one of your books, Freedom Papers, one of the slogans that's in here in the back, and this is something that's on your website, dasanahanu.com, but you say, write free, speak free, live free. Those 6 words. Mm-hmm. Break that down for us.
Yeah, that's my mantra. And it goes back to that idea about short and long-term goals. So I remember, being educated and kind of reading and studying and kind of building in community and social justice and cultural spaces, and that idea of personal freedom, like being able to kind of like carve your own authentic space. And so, and if you do that, then you can learn how to, navigate the world that way. So for me, if I write free and speak free, I'm going to live free, and I'm going to live free now and then. I'll be able to write free and speak. I'll be able to write myself free and speak myself free, and ultimately I will carve out a way for me to live free if I do it well enough. And so that's what it is. And I want to carry that mantra so anybody else can see it. Like, however you create, I happen to write, but in whatever way if you cook, cook free, speak free, and you'll live free. That means do what you do. Also walk in your truth and speak your truth about what it is you do and why you do and the beauty in the way that you do it. And when the world starts to recognize it, adjust, and give you room to continue to do it, what you're doing is creating more room for your own personal freedom. We just got to remember it, because if not, then it becomes manipulated by the people outside, and oftentimes it's for access to what we're able to give them. But if we know it, if I know I write free, speak free, and live free, then I know I'm the source and the catalyst for this freedom, not your adoration or affirmation. So I'm in control, and it goes back to the idea of self-determination, which comes from my mentors in the community.
All right, so tell us about the new book, when we can get it, how we can get it, all that good stuff.
So the new book is called Shackle Freedom, Black Living in the Modern American South. It's being published by Willow Brooks. It's an award-winning division of Aquarius Press. You can, right now, we're just getting ready to release it. We're just putting it out for release. It will be up on the Willow Books website very soon. It will be up on Amazon this coming week. You'll be able to get the ebook by December 18th. You can also follow me, my website, dasanahanu.com, and you'll see more information about the book. Within the next couple of weeks, it'll be available at all online retailers. So I'm very excited.
Word. Dasan Ahanu, thank you for joining us on Mic Check.
Thank you.